Okay, so we're still in action one, the exposition, but now we're changing scenes again, right? The scenery is now the Capulets' house, but we're in a different area where we meet Juliet, her mother, and her nurse, who was her wet nurse, or basically raised Juliet since she was a baby and even nursed her, which means breastfed. This is really important because this is seen scientifically and just spiritually as a bonding moment between mother and child. And because the nurse was so close to Juliet, there's a very strong bond where the nurse is more of a best friend and an advisor to Juliet, more involved with her life than her mother, Lady Capulet. Now, Lady Capulet's trying to matchmake with Paris because if remember, there's no other Capulet children. So what would any mother really truly wish for her child is to be completely taken care of once they're gone. And so Lady Capulet's approach is pretty rough, but her intentions are true to what a mother's intentions should be, making sure that her daughter is taken care of. So here, Lady Capulet and the nurse come in looking for Juliet. And finally, Juliet enters. And Lady Capulet's trying to have a private conversation, but she asks the nurse to leave because she wants to talk to Juliet in secret. But then she has a crisis of conscience and asks the nurse to come back again. She really doesn't feel comfortable with the nurse out of the room. And you can see that when she tries to approach this sensitive subject and stumbles. And here, Lady Capulet says she's not 14, and the nurse goes into a long monologue about how she knows that Juliet is not 14. And this monologue is really important if you look very closely at it because it does show the bond between Juliet and her nurse. It shows how the nurse ties Juliet into a family memory with her own husband who is now passed away. And she's very crude. And you can look at the details at some of the things that she says. But you can tell that the nurse is not necessarily full of manners. And Lady Capulet can't take it anymore. And even though she asks the nurse to calm down, the nurse still keeps going on. And Juliet kind of has a little dig too. But finally, Lady Capulet gets her in and decides to talk to Juliet about marriage. Now notice when she asks, what do you think about marriage? And she says, well, it's an honor, right? She knows that it's a sacrament and it's a true tie and a bond, but she doesn't dream of it. So it hasn't been on her radar. She hasn't even thought about it, right? She's not really looking to get married. Keep in mind, she's 13, right? What 13-year-old's really thinking about marriage? Lady Capulet does actually propose the fact of Valiant Paris, and they use a lot of different symbols to describe him: a man of wax, a flower, and more importantly, reading over the volume of Paris. So again, we have this motif of a book, right, or the written language, which obviously Shakespeare is a fan of. But we've also got the motif here of the flower. We have an extended metaphor here where Lady Capulet tries to sell Paris to Juliet. And keep in mind the different things that she talks about, right? It says that he's fair, right? He's an unbound lover, right? He only lacks a cover. And she talks about how he's locked in with gold clasps and has a golden story, right? She's kind of showing Juliet that he's very wealthy. And basically, by marrying him, she will make herself no less, which helps with society. So you can see where her intentions lie. They are positive, although misguided. And the nurse agrees. But specifically, what she's worried about is children, and makes a crude comment towards the end. Okay? So when Lady Capulet asks again, can you like of Paris's love? She's like, well, I'll look to like if looking is what will actually tell you if you're in love. But she's not going to go any further than what her mom gives her permission to do. So as far as mom knows, she's going to go to the party. She's going to try and check out Paris, but she's not going to do anything else. And so, of course, mom is happy with this answer. And they all rush to the actual scene.